Follow the white rabbit, my friends. Now and again there's an action film that stands 10 feet tall above the rest, released around that time mainly due to its rich themes or tone, adding another fascinating element to the movie. One of these was the first John Wick movie, released in 2014, adding a much needed incredible twist to the revenge subgenre, which starred Keanu Reeves in his now iconic role. Another one of these was The Matrix, which also had Reeves in the legendary role of Neo, a character who, when we first meet him under the name of Thomas Anderson, is a skilled computer programmer and hacker in his spare time, working in a dull day job professionally. He wonders, just as we the audience do, what exactly is the Matrix? Why has it been haunting his waking dreams now into his adult life? The Wachowskis sisters, Lana and Lily, tackle complex existential themes and capture awe-inspiring visuals to complement their writing throughout their works, especially within the Matrix movies. After making their directorial debut in 1996's Bound, a seductive thriller starring Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon, the Wachowskis were highly passionate and keen to get working on their second feature project, and one that ultimately garnered them worldwide attention as visionary filmmakers. The story unfolds around the central character,
Mr. Anderson,
with his alias in the digital world being Neo, who has, unbeknownst to him, been painstakingly searched for years by a group of characters led by Morpheus, played fantastically by Laurence Fishburne, who have learned the secrets of the Matrix and its grasp on millions of human beings across the world. The Matrix is explained to us as a simulated reality, one very similar to our very own, created by machines, referred to as Sentinels, in an effort to control humankind in a world that is in actuality a barren wasteland overrun with artificial intelligence.
when you go to church, when you pay your taxes, it is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. You were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Thematically, it cleverly weaves a gorgeous tale that really prods our minds while watching. The questions we have asked ourselves time and time again. What is the meaning of life? Is our perceived reality merely an illusion that we need to spiritually, or in this case literally, break through? What is my purpose? All these questions are explored while the film is also being ridiculously entertaining, making for one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time. The genius of Neo as the central character is how he works as a catalyst for the audience's inner monologues in day-to-day life. We relate to him wholeheartedly on his journey to self-discovery, just as we do for Alice burrowing further down the rabbit hole. The Wachowskis use Alice in Wonderland and even the Wizard of Oz references quite frequently, particularly in this installment of the Matrix trilogy.
What does that mean?
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
He is given the choice of two pills, the red one and the blue one. If the blue one is taken, Neo would return back to his old life and wake up oblivious to his encounters with Morpheus, Trinity, who is played excellently here by Carrie Moss, and the agents. However, when taking the red pill, which he inevitably does, he is given the opportunity to stay in Wonderland and see how far down the rabbit hole really goes. Pills are explained as part of a trace program to help the team pinpoint Neo's location in reality and retrieve his body to prepare him for the real world, away from the indoctrination by the Matrix. This sequence contains some of the freakiest cyberpunk imagery I have ever seen on screen. This includes the whole scene of Neo being bugged by the agents, mirror spreading onto Neo's body, and then Neo's awakening from the pod, then entering into body therapy. This imagery has definitely stayed with me throughout throughout my life, ever since seeing this film, and that is definitely what makes this one of the most visually pleasing films that you could see ever, probably. Neo has been searched for a very important reason. Morpheus believes he is the one, the second coming as prophesied by the Oracle, to aid the resurgence of humankind into enlightenment via the destruction of the Matrix. This provides the really intriguing biblical references in the story. The Matrix trilogy, and this one definitely included, does contain references quite frequently to all kinds of theological, thematical sources. So you can take from it whatever you want, basically. It is very open to interpretation. The Enlightenment here comes through the form of escape from the tyrannical hold of the human species from machines so that the human species can be truly free. Freedom is also a concept that is questioned in the movie, not least of all by the antagonistic character Cypher, portrayed by Joe Pantoliano. Cypher is one of the crew members on the Nebuchadnezzar, which is the rebellion's hovercraft, consisting of Morpheus, Trinity, Apoc, played by Julian Arahanga, Switch, played by Belinda McClory, Mouse, played by Matt Duran, Tank, played by Marcus Chong, and Dozer, played by Anthony Ray Parker. All of these characters are beautifully performed and fascinating in their own right, with Switch, for example, originally meant to be portrayed by McCrory, just in the world of the Matrix, and a male playing Switch in the real world. Due to studio interference, this was changed through the pre-production process. Lily Wachowski has recently said in interviews that the allegorical trans narrative was always intended, Switch being a wonderful example of this. As alluded to before, the concept of freedom and choice, in fact being an illusion, is further explored through the character of Cypher, a man who begins to work as an insider for the agents hunting down Neo and betray his fellow crew members due to his increasing lack of faith in Morpheus's beliefs and painful dissatisfaction with reality. His motives are of course selfish and cowardly, but nonetheless make for a fascinating villain character whose views on real freedom in the world are engaging. Although Cypher is an underrated antagonistic character in the Matrix universe, the categorized main villain here is Agent Smith, played beautifully by Hugo Weaving, and for very good reason. Smith is seen as the head of the agents who are aiming to silence Morpheus for doing what they believe is disrupting the status quo within the Matrix. Weaving's performance is spectacular, not least for this incredible monologue.
I hate this place. This zoo, this prison, this reality, whatever you want to call it. I can't stand it any longer. It's the smell, if there is such a thing. I feel saturated by it. I can taste your stink. And every time I do, I fear that I've somehow been infected by it. It's repulsive.
Another major standout in the supporting cast is Gloria Foster, who portrays the Oracle. She's a really effortlessly cool and really compelling screen presence, making for another in a long list of really cool scenes in this movie. The cinematography by Bill Pope is sensational, taking the Wachowskis' vivid mental images and projecting them onto the screen with innovative camera work by the entire camera film crew and a keen eye for the stunning visual effects in post-production. The soundtrack, featuring classic cuts by Rage Against the Machine, Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson, are all fantastically placed, never being a distraction from the piece, but in fact enhancing the already sustainable cool factor and emotional context in the story, working alongside the iconic orchestral score conducted by Don Davis. Another major shout out needs to go to Young Wo Ping, who was the kung fu choreographer on the production. All the amazing kung fu majesty that we see on screen all stemmed from this man. I would also like to give a shout out to the film editing here by Zack Steinberg. He's worked on the Wachowskis before this movie with their directorial debut Bound. He worked on the entire Matrix trilogy, and then the Wachowskis' directorial work after this, Speed Racer. He's also worked on films like Ender's Game and In Time. I'd be interested to see why he hasn't worked with the Wachowskis since Speed Racer, why they've gone for a different editor. I'd be interested to look further into that story and see if there was a particular creative decision for that. But you see his editorial style definitely quite clearly throughout his works, particularly the science fiction works have a similar sort of feel. What I love about this movie is simply that as a kid I really loved it for its cool characters, its really influential neo-gothic style, amazing action set pieces, and stunning visual effects. But with developed years under my belt, it now fascinates me on a philosophical level too. It's meant quite a lot to me watching this back recently, and particularly the past year of my life, I'd say I've definitely found myself at a crossroads. And I think with the new Matrix coming up, the Matrix Resurrections, watching back through the trilogy beforehand is proving really kind of insightful. It's one of the most effective films I've seen in terms of its world building, compelling the audience into the filmmaker's really beautiful imagination. The sequels get even more complex and add constructions upon constructions for Neo to get past. But we will leave the sequels for another video. With The Matrix, the Wachowskis, of course, have developed this even further beyond the films. They started working almost immediately after the post-production finished on the first Matrix movie. They worked on a graphic novel which was released in 2000. They have, of course, worked really closely as well with the video games that came out of The Matrix. There was the Animatrix, which was a selected amount of animated shorts set within the Matrix universe. All of these we are going to be exploring. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Or indeed, if you've been listening via podcast, thank you very much for listening there as well. Next week we're going to be looking at The Matrix Reloaded, the second movie in the Matrix now quadrilogy. But I hope you follow me down the rabbit hole. Come and join me, and this is going to be fun. Thank you again very much for watching or listening. Stay safe, my friends.